So tonight, again, for our second, Juan's been very generous in offering to give short talks on Angular every month. And this is his second month. He spoke last month. He's a software developer at economic security planning, and he has roughly 3 months of, or 3 years, sorry, not 3 months, 3 years of experience working in the industry and about 1 year working with the Angular framework. And tonight he's going to be talking about at input, at output, and event emitters. So why don't you take it away? You should have privileges, presenter privileges.
Yeah, so I'm gonna leave the camera off, but I'll have the voice, and I hope that everybody can hear me fine. So yeah, I mean, thank you guys for having me again. Been a little hectic running around, but definitely do my best to come up and show up and talk a little bit about Angular. And I think the last time we talked a little bit about getting started with components. And I thought maybe we can talk about the, and we did kind of go over parent and child relationships. So I thought maybe we can talk about how they communicate. And this is one pattern of how they communicate. So let me go ahead and I'll share my screen and we can start. Let's see, share screen. Okay. Okay, can everybody, let me do that now, share. Okay.
Yep.
All good?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so yeah. Basically, this is going to be a little bit about this pattern of how a parent and a child component communicate. And so we're going to go in to dive into add input decorators, add output decorators, and event emitters. So let's dive in. If I click, yep, there you go. Okay, so here's going to be the agenda for today. We're just going to recap a little bit about our last meeting. I will probably kind of just roughly go over the components, and maybe we can, if everybody has VScode, I would appreciate it if you guys want to follow along, get VScode ready, have Angular up and installed, and you guys can kind of follow along on this presentation. We'll also go into the add input decorators. We'll go into the add output decorators, and hopefully we can go through an example of that while I'm also doing the code. There is in Visual Studio Code, there is this extension called LiveShare. So I don't know if you guys have that available. That way, if you don't have your environment installed, that's okay. I can send you a link, and you guys can jump in on my screen, and you guys can code along with me as we go. So if anybody,
Mark's asking if he should create a fresh project.
Yeah, we're gonna start from scratch. So I'm gonna start from scratch, and I don't have a Git repo for this. So yeah, we're gonna start from the beginning. So yeah. All right, let's go. And okay, so a little bit about me. Well, yeah, like Julie said, I'm 3 years of experience. I have 1 year of experience in Angular, and most of my Angular work has been migrating Angular JS, which is the old framework, to the new framework. So I think I take it upon myself to try to learn these patterns or designs and ultimately talk about it. And sometimes even when you do talk about it, when you do present it, you kind of learn a little bit more, or you get a deeper understanding of the situation. So that's one of the reasons why I like to present, or that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. I am located in Los Angeles, California. A little bit about my tech stack is involving AWS, Angular, and Python on a given day. And some of my goals for this year is to become an AWS hero, write a little bit more content on both Angular and AWS. Okay, so let's get started. As I said, we're going to recap a little bit about what we talked about last meeting. And we talked about how these components were supposed to be these building blocks, and how these building blocks are composed of basically the website. And we talked about 3 main things about the components. And the components being that they have a view, a template, that they have a class where it controls the logic, and which they have metadata, which tells Angular that this is a component and this is how it's defined. And today, we're not going to exactly do this tree, but I wanted to show it again because I just wanted to show how this could be like a parent-child relation, and how you'll see how there's basically a grandparent, parent, and then child. If you look at the app component being basically the grandparent, with the authentication component being the child, and then the login being the child to the auth component, or the browser component being a parent to the list and a detail component. So basically, what I'm trying to show here is how do we get the level of data that is required from, let's say, for example, the authentication component to the login component, and the login component to the authentication component. And so that's kind of the pattern that we're going to see today, is how the parent and child communicate, not only just one way for the parent to the child, but also the child notifying the parent of a change in data or change in value. Okay, so all good there. Any questions on that, or anything that anybody wanted to go over?
I don't see any in the chat, so.
Okay, all right. So let's move on. Okay, so, oh, this is probably way before, no? Yeah. Okay, so here we go. So we talked about the parent passing in data to the child component. And to do that, we use this thing that is an @input decorator. And that @input decorator, when you read a component, when you go into a component class and you see that that component is able to receive data of that. And so again, whenever the parent component has a change in value that is passing that value to the child component, you're going to see that child is going to reflect those changes. And Angular does a pretty good job of updating that. I don't want to go far off, but there is life cycles to these Angular components, and one of those life cycles is where it triggers that change. But that would be on another topic. So let's see. I guess here, if I may, give me 1 second. I just wanted to see if. Okay, so I guess here, if I'm going to do, I do have some notes, and do you guys have Visual Studio Code open? Is everybody follow? Because I'm going to open up Visual Studio Code.
I do. I have it open on my work laptop, so that if you see me looking away, it's because I'm looking at my work laptop.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Well, all right, let's see. I do have it. Okay, so here, I'm going to go into the intro. Okay, so does everybody see the terminal, or is that too small?
You can make it just a little bit bigger, but.
Okay, let me just go in. I think it was here, and I think I can change it on. Create also 24. Okay, how's that? Is that a little better? Let me just.
Yes.
Clear that out. Okay, and so like I think it was Mark. Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and start a new project, and so I'm just gonna go ahead and write in the command. I think it's ng. So ng new, and I gave this one a call, input output example, and defaults. So here's a command to create a new application, a new Angular application. I do have an option that's defaults, and just kind of we're fine with all the defaults that Angular provides. So I'm just gonna go ahead and click OK on that. Give it some time. And so it should be loading, and it should be creating a Angular application. I did want to go. I think it was, I don't know if it was Cheryl last meeting. She did ask about the root component, and I just wanted to double check that that is the case. That she asked, how do you find the root component in an application? And I think I double checked. There is many ways, but the one thing was if you go into the index.html, which is that file, which is like the initial file that starts, you'll see it in here that it will have in the body that component, that app component. And so that's I just wanted to clear that question, because I wasn't sure if I answered it correctly or not, but just wanted to double check. All right, so you'll see that it's installing packages. And like I said, I do have LiveShare here. So if anybody's interested, I can share, and as I go along, you guys can kind of follow along, and you guys can also write code as well. So if anybody has the LiveShare extension, we can do that. Just let me know. and I'll share the link. Let's see. See, okay, so it successfully created the application. Okay, we have in here, we have our one root component. It's here. And like I said, we talked about the three things that which compose a component, or what a component consists of. And it was the metadata here that kind of tells what Angular expects of this component, so the selector, the template, we have the class that holds the logic, and then we have the view. And this view is kind of this boilerplate code that Angular gives you. So we're not going to need this. I'm going to go ahead and delete this for now. Just leave it there. Okay, and
one second. So with the live share, if you share that, I got it installed on my laptop.
yeah. So let me go ahead and I'll share a link.
Okay.
This is my first time using it, so
okay.
Let's give it a shot. Let's try it out.
Yeah, let's try it out. I think John's ready to go too.
All right, let's see if I can find you guys. Hold on. I gotta find the chat now. Controls. Wait 1 second. Just trying to find the yeah, I can't find the chat now.
Oh.
Okay, so I see the meeting controls. Let me see.
Is it up at the very top of your screen?
Is it? Is that I'm so used to like Google Meets and all these other ones, but
it should be at the top.
So, oh yeah, I see it. Wow, it's in red. Okay, so here we go.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. All right, I see it now. Okay, so here we go. So I've got the so I shared it to everyone.
Okay.
So you can log in, and I think that gives you access already to let's see. Let's go to Visual Studio Code. Let's see what happens here. Are you in? Let me see if all right, so I sent you the link. It will tell me if I have a participant or not.
Mark Thompson joined the session.
Oh yeah, so Mark Thompson is here.
So okay. Mark got in.
Nice. So Mark is in. Nice. Okay. So hello world. Yeah, that's right. We can even put a little paragraph in there. I think this is HTML, right? Exactly. Awesome. Okay. So I got Mark is in here. Let's see who else we've got. Okay, so that's the first one. Okay, nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'll also start creating then the components, and I'm gonna go ahead and create a component.
Except you let me in.
Oh, you didn't get in yet?
Yeah, over there in the bottom right.
Oh, it doesn't say. Okay, wow. The step being right. Yes. Wow.
Julie joined the session.
Well, how did Mark get in then? I didn't accept him.
Oh, he probably signed in. I just did it anonymous, and so
okay.
That's probably why.
So here we go. So I'm going to create. So if, for those that are following along, I'm going to go ahead and generate a new component. And by doing that, we call ng and then space g space c, and then we call customer list. And this is customer list is really going to be our parent component. So we're going to go ahead and call that customer list. Oh, it doesn't work. Okay, that's because I need to go into the actual project, which I think I called it input. Oh, sorry, Mark. Got it in the wrong place. I think Command Z could work, no? There you go. So CD input, there you go. And then I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna run the command one more time. You do need to, change directory into the actual application project. That's why.
Wheels join the session.
It threw me the error. Okay, so that's our first component, and we can take a look here at the. We'll see that we have our first component here, and it's packed nicely in a folder with our CSS, our HTML, our specs, which is testing, and we have our customer list. Okay, so this is our parent component. So if anyone wants to take that responsibility to in this app root component that we're in, if we can add the selector of our parent component in here. Does anybody, while I go ahead and create a new one. So just this customer list component is going to be our parent component. If anybody can add the selector in here while I do the our child component, which is going to be called NGGC, and it's going to be called customer detail. Okay, so this is going to be our child component. And so what I'll do, okay, so there you go. Thank you.
You're ending the same line as you.
Nice. Okay. So what he did there was he went into our parent component, which is customer list. And then remember the metadata was going to tell you, hey, metadata Angular, if you see this in the HTML, then reach this component to display this view. And so that's basically what he did there. He's adding this parent component into the root component. And so that's going to be and I think this would work. I think, oh, the CD doesn't tell. So, oh, is project something? Is that something that I'm not too familiar with on the HTML side? Okay, never mind. All right, so let's go ahead and let's see how this looks. I'm curious actually to see how this. Hope I spelled that right. Serve, and let's take a look to see how this looks. So far, we have a hello world on our root component, and in our parent component, which is one that's going to be shown, is here, this app customer list. Well, let's see what that view looks like. Well, that view is just customer list works. Okay, so we should see two things that are going to be shown in a second here. Now that we've created two components, we removed some of that boilerplate code, and we've placed in the selector, our parent selector inside the root, and still generating. Okay, let's give it some time. I'm gonna go ahead and save all my changes, all the changes that we've done. All right, go, nice. So let's go in and let's take a look how this beautiful masterpiece looks like. I guess, yeah, it's open. Okay, let's take a look how this. Oh, this can't be reached. Try one more time. The other thing that I'm also struggling is between Microsoft and Mac. So some of my shortcuts in Mac are working and some of mine are not. So I just get confused. All right, but you see here that this is our root component, which is using the hello world. And in our root component, we added this app customer list selector, which reflects that customer list works. And you see that so that's what we kind of created, right? If we went over last, this is kind of like the recap of what we created. I'm going to go ahead and just show you, maybe for those visual learners, if you can take a look at how this looks like. So app root, and then we have app customer list. Okay. All right, so let's go back into the presentation. Let's see if I can go back. Okay. Let's go in. So we talked a little bit about input. So how does this fit in, right? How so far, like I mentioned, we have we have three components, but let's forget about the root component. Let's just focus on the parent component, which is going to be the list, and let's talk about the child component, which is going to be the customer detail component. Okay, so let's see how we can pass in one type of information from the parent to the child using this input. So let's go back into Visual Studio Code. Let's see if we can go into our parent component. Let's go into our child component, which is going to be the detail. This is the detail one. And we're going to go into the logic here. And we're going to go and type in this decorator. That's going to be at input. And I'm just going to call it right now. Let's see, I'm going to call it item. It's just going to be some blank item. Okay, so now it's giving me a problem because I need to import this. I need to tell Angular where to find this at input. So let's go ahead and get a quick fix. Import this. Okay. Now there is a lot of noise here that I don't think we need for this project. I'm going to remove this lifecycle here. We don't need this, so I'm going to just remove it. And I'm going to also remove the constructor. We don't need a constructor for this. I'm just going to close it out like that. Okay, just to kind of clean it up. All right, so everybody kind of follows me now, right? All we did was just added that at input decorator into the item. into the child component. And so next, what we're going to do is we want to display that in our template. So if we can just go into the child template, and I'm just going to call it here. I'm just going to say, let's say Angular Meetup, and we're going to then pass in Angular Meetup, and just going to pass in this item. Now, mind you, this item has to exist. This is a variable that is represented in that component class, so it has to match the same name variable to the same name right here. Otherwise, it's going to throw you an error. So far so good. And actually, so far we can maybe just say child data, for example, something like that. Let's see, Angular Meetup child or for example, I'm gonna go ahead and save all my save. Okay, save everything. Okay, and then let's take a look and see how this is supposed to look like. Let's see. Oh, okay. So now nothing has appeared because I haven't established a relationship between the parent and child. So far, all we have, remember, there's 3 components. I said ignore about the root, but so far we just have the parent. We have to include the child. So I completely forgot, and I gotta go into our customer list. And all I got to do is, again, just like what Mark was doing, just go in, get that selector, custom customer, and I guess it's going to be called detail, like that. And how do I know that? Because if I just go into the customer detail, I don't want to repeat it again, but it's just I think it's important. We just look at the app customer detail selector. We're going to copy that and just make sure that I don't have any typos, and I'll just paste it in here. And so that's just telling Angular that, hey, use this, retrieve this component as well. So now we've established that parent-child relation of components, and I think now it should work. Hopefully, let's take another look. Okay, nice. So now we included our child component, and you can see here on this hierarchy. I don't know if you guys is that big enough? Can you guys see that or? Okay. So now, yeah. So, okay. So now we've got the parent. This is the parent, but the parent, you see how it includes the customer detail works. It includes the Angular Meetup. And now we've got the child, which the child now includes that HTML, that view of the child. So, and that's fine. We were able to just, pass in that value from the child. But now what we want to do is we want the parent to pass in values to the child. So let's do that. Let's go into, let's see. So now in the parent component, what we're going to have to do is, okay, let's see. Okay, let's go into the parent component, which is a customer list. All right, nice. It's here. Okay, so it's this one. Sometimes when I am working on Angular and I have to use a component, some of the things that I do look into is I look into that component. I want to see what does it take in, what does it take out. And so looking at this, what you're telling me is that if this is the child component, this child is able to receive input, this value type, this data type. And we know it's a string just because of the quotations. So now all I got to do is here up in the parent, all we got to do is just do a bracket, which is property binding. That's another topic that we can probably discuss, and maybe I probably should have. But anyway, and this property binding has to be the same name as the child. So whatever child name that was, that child variable name, we've got to include that. And so we got to include item in here. So let's include item in here. And now we're asked to ourselves.
Mark Thompson is editing the same line as you.
Oh yeah, there you go, Mark. So Mark, yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and
Mark
add
Thompson,
that.
left your line.
And let's go ahead and add that. And then what I'll do is I'll add so Mark, if you can add the name, I'll add the name of the let's see if I can find it. Customer list. So here we go. We're gonna call this this one just the current or parent item basically. And so if you can add that in there, that would be great. So we can just so what I'm doing is I'm creating a variable in the parent name, parent component. It's called parent item, and I'm just gonna call it coming from data from parent. Let's say, for example, some kind of information that we got to pass. I'm also going to just delete this boiler, this stuff that we don't really need. So we can just remove that. And so I'm going to save this. So what I just did here was just create just a name, really. And so let's go ahead and save that. Just created a variable. Okay. And then I think Mark on his end, he went ahead and in the child, in the parent HTML, all he did was he created that same name. You see how it's the same thing, parent item. So parent item, that has to match. So here's the thing. We have this one that has to match the parent component, which we called it parent item. And then we have this one that's called item, which is the item from the child component. So now if I go ahead and I save everything, let's see if I save this, hopefully this works. We should expect that parent flow, right? We should expect that parent, let's see if I can find it, data from parent. That's what we should expect. So let's go ahead and open that. And there we go. There you see. So no more add input. We now have that Angular Meetup data from parent component. And so we can also take a look at this. This is an extension called Angular DevTools. And we can also take a look to see what properties it has. It could be a little helpful. Let's see if I can scroll. Okay, so no properties on the customer list, but maybe on the details. Okay, so here we go. At inputs, oh, that's strange. Actually, customer list should have one. Yeah, parent item. Okay, so you see here that we can also make the change here, just in case if you were just playing around with it, just call it testing, whatever. And if I press enter, you see that it also made the change to the child. So now the child is also called testing. So that's a different way of seeing it. If you're working on Angular and maybe it's a little easier for you to do it here, then you can also make the changes on the DevTool. But of course, it's not permanent. This is only just on the browser. It's just for you to kind of like play with, like a little sandbox. Otherwise, if I refresh it, it just kind of goes back to what we have on Visual Studio Code. So let's go back into our presentation. And this is really what we kind of worked on, right? I mean, all we did was this app item detail is really just a child component, which is our child component, which we call app customer detail. And all we did was we got the target, which is the at input from the child, and we passed on that property from the parent, which is called current item, or we called it in this case parent item, and we passed it to the child. So that's that one flow of communication going back, no? As this shows right here, parent to child. And so that is using the at input decorator. I think the next one would be the output and event emitter. But I'm going to take a break here. I don't know if anybody has any questions, or maybe I can take a breather, or if anybody has any comments.
Any questions or comments for Juan? We got a nice one from John. And Mark doesn't know how his cursor moved. I think it's magic.
What?
Mark was saying he doesn't know how his cursor moved at the one point. He wasn't even touching his keyboard, and I was just commenting that I think it's magic as part of the live sharing.
Yeah. This is my first time doing it. I thought it would probably be nice. I mean, I think our last meeting, we did have some trouble with some of the participants who didn't have their environment set up. So I said, okay, maybe they can.
I think this is working out well. I just know to next time sign in. Mark said that I could still get write privileges, but I can't figure it out. So anyway, I think we're good to go. I don't think we have any questions, so let's go on.
All right, let's move on. Okay, so now that we talked one aspect of it, which is the parent talking to the child, now we're talking about the child talking to the parent. That's the other aspect of it. And this is where we use the add output and we use the event emitters together. This one is a little bit more tricky. I think for me, it took me some time to practice it. But it just takes a lot of practice. And so here we go. So this is sending data to the parent component. And the way the child does this is that it uses the add output decorator in the child component so that it notifies the parent when there is a change. And so to do that, it uses that event emitter. And so we'll take a look at that, and we'll kind of dive in. So let's go into the Visual Studio Code. I'm a little, I'm just gonna show it. So I'm gonna be a little, let's see. I'm thinking about whether if I delete this or not. I'm just gonna delete it. I'm just gonna delete it for now and just show you guys just the output. So now we're just deleting the input. Now I'm just gonna show you the output. Now, in many cases, they both work together. But for right now, I just want to show one side and I want to show the other side. So I'm gonna delete this. I'm gonna delete everything, pretty much the inputs that we've made. And so far, this is just, okay, the customer list. Okay, customer detail. So we don't have, okay, we don't have items. So I'm just gonna delete that as well. All right, so let's see now. I don't think I need this app component. Yeah, we don't need that. Okay. So let me just kind of clean this up. I like to, sometimes I have too many tabs open and I get distracted. All right. Okay, so let's work from the child component. Remember, this is the child notifying the parent. Our child component is the customer detail. So let's go into our customer detail component. And in here is where we're gonna write, remember, just like we did with the input, we're gonna do the output. So we're just gonna type in output. This one, I gave it a name. We're gonna call it, what did I call it? Okay, so I'm gonna call it new item event. And here's where it differs, right? Where we need an event emitter type. So we need to initialize a new one, and we need to call this, well, this needs to be this type, event emitter. And make sure that you don't get it from the string, get it from Angular core. So get that from Angular core. And this is going to be a type string. Empty. Okay, so, and then this is also something that we need to import from Angular core. Oh. All right, nice. So, okay, so here we go. We have a little bit of a structure here. It's a little bit more than just the input. The add output, we have the decorator notifying that, hey, we're gonna have an event. Some change is gonna happen. So we use a decorator. We have the name of that event. We tell Angular to create a new event emitter type, and it's gonna be of the type string. Okay, so far this is really just an event, just to notify, hey, and so we'll dive in a little deeper. Okay, so let's see if I should. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and I'll create a method that we're going to capture this value. So remember, like I said, we got to notify the parent. So let me go ahead and I'll create a function, and I'll kind of run through what this function does. So it's going to be add item. We got a value. That's going to be a string. We expect a string. And okay, so, and now here it's in here where we're going to capture that. We're going to notify the parent. So we're going to say, hey, this new item event. So remember, this is an event emitter type. And so this event emitter type has this method called emit. So we're going to use that to notify, to broadcast, or just send a message to the parent that, hey, this has changed, and it has changed to this value. And this value is going to be captured here. And it's pretty much passed in. So far, all we've created is a function that just notifies the parent that there has been a value change. Now, the question is, how do we tie this with this? How do we call this function? This function right now is unused. Okay, so now we've got to go into the HTML. And so for that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go into the customer list, customer detail HTML, which is our child. I'm going to close these for now. Okay, so here we go. Here is our customer detail work. So here is a little bit of HTML that if you're not familiar with, you should get familiar with. But I'm going to just go ahead and I'll start typing in for.
Mark Thompson is editing the same line as you.
I think, yeah, that's strange. I think because I mean, maybe it has to be something with Visual Studio Code. Also, just helping me write some of the stuff. Okay, so here we go. We got a label, and this is going to be called, let's go call it add item. So here's our label so far, and honestly, all this is just going to be just an added. Let me just see how, so you guys can also take a look. So far we just added a label, and it just really looks like a string, nothing big. So what we're gonna do is here. So let me just kind of walk through a little bit.
Julie left your line.
So let's see. We're gonna go in. Okay, so here, remember, we created this function, but so far it's unused. Nobody, we haven't really done anything really. We haven't captured that value, and so in the HTML, in the UI is where we're gonna capture that value, and that's where we're gonna call this add new item to then notify the parent. And so that is this full circle, right? That's that level, that's the connection of how we're doing it. So again, we've established that this component, when it comes to life, create this new event emitter type. We've got this function that will emit that event. And in the HTML, whenever the user, we're going to create a button for this. Whenever some kind of event happens, we're going to capture that value and send it out to the parent. And so here we go. So far, we've just created a label. We're going to create an input. This input is going to have, let's see, it's going to be a type text. And let's see, well, I'm going to match the IDs also.
They're editing the same line as you.
To have also the
Mark Thompson left your line.
Input, okay. Mark Thompson left my line, okay. And then let's try the new item. Okay, so what I'm doing, this right here is a template reference, and I want to capture that that value. So this is the ID right here that I'm capturing. Okay, so this new item. And then the last thing that we're gonna do is create that event. So whenever there could be different kinds of events. There's where the mouse enters, or where this was clicked, or if a mouse was hovered over it, all kinds of events. So far, we're just going to create an event that just when the user kind of clicks on it. So we're just going to create an event, and this is going to be a button type button.
They're editing the same line as you.
Type button, and then we're going to add the event. So when a user clicks on this button, well, guess what? We're gonna have to do something when the user clicks on this button. And so that something is that function that we called, that add new item. And the only thing that has that value is this template reference here, this new item reference. So this is what has that value. So I'm gonna have to use that ID, new item, that value to capture that. And I think that's all for now. I think all I'm gonna do is just add, let's see, add to parents list. Okay, add to parents list. Okay, so far so good. Does anybody have any questions? Because I think that's a little bit too much. I don't know if anybody had questions on this.
Does anybody have any questions? I don't see any in the chat right now.
Sorry, so it looks like in the input, you've got an ID item input, but then you've got the octothorpe, or what I would consider an ID tag new item, which is, you're referencing the new item in item.value, but why the difference there?
Say that again. You mean, oh, the input for and the ID for this?
Yeah. At the input, you've got the ID item input plus the octothorpe new item.
Right.
But you're referencing the new item.value and not the ID. Yeah,
so I did the ID mostly for the label, but I'm using the template. I guess, I mean, I don't know if there's any difference. I guess I can use the same name, but I didn't want to mix up the both. I'm not using. Now, I don't know if with the ID, if I'm able to get the value. You think I can use the same? You think I can use the ID to still get that value? I'm not sure.
No, sorry. I guess I was just thinking they were both IDs. So Yeah, that was my.
Yeah, I mean, I get, I never, so from my experience, never, I think for me, most of my handling has been using Angular forms, and that's how I've kind of retrieved any changes on values. So, I mean, maybe we can give it a shot. I don't know if the ID for this input attribute, it will also retain a value. I would be interested to see that. I'm not sure. I don't know if I can maybe just kind of comment this. Can I comment?
Mark's saying ID attribute doesn't link.
Say that again.
Thanks, Mark.
Attribute doesn't
Thanks,
link.
Mark.
Oh, okay. Thanks. All right. Okay, so here we go. So far, so good. Let's see, what am I missing here? So, okay, let's kind of walk this through again, where we've got the add output decorator. We're telling it that, hey, this is an event type emitter. Here is the name of the event, and here is our function to notify that. The only time our function gets triggered, it gets triggered when a user clicks on that button. And I think we're gonna see that button here so far. I did add this add to parents list, but we have not worked anything on the parent yet. We have to now, most of our work has been on the child side, right? So now what we have to do is we have to work on the parent side. So why don't we, let's go into the parent. And let's go into the parent customer here. And what we can do is, let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'll create an item here, but I don't know if, let's say, okay, well, I'll just go ahead and create the array. So I'm gonna create an array of items. And I'm just gonna do something basic. I'm just gonna do item 1 here, and then I'm just gonna create another one that's gonna be item 2. Okay, nothing crazy. And remember, this is the parent component. This is an item that's already, it's an item that's it's an items array that's established, right? It's assigned, so we have it here. The question is, what do we do when the child notifies us? Now, like, we have to have a kind of like a handler as to what happens when a child passes in that new value. Well, in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add in, to our array. So far we only have two items or 2 elements in our array, but I'm just going to go ahead and I'll create a add item here. And this is going to take in the new item, or new item, and it's going to be of type string. And all we want to do is, once we get notified that there is a change, all we want to do is that then we just want to add that item to our child. So we're just going to say, hey, this item that remember, because it's an array, it has that push method, and we're able to then just add in that new item. Okay, so I'm going to save that for now. So I think this kind of handles the logic, but it doesn't make quite sense. And I understand why, because there's not a connection as to how do we receive that new value? Like, where, is this some kind of like magic or Angular magic? How do we? Yeah, we notified it. Does Angular already know that connection, that tree relation? Well, we have to explicitly say it on the HTML side. And so here, remember, customer detail is that child component. And we are currently right now we're in the view of the parent. So this is what the parent sees. So what we have to do, here's how we go now full circle. Here's where we connect everything. We have to use this event binding. We have to use this event binding to tell Angular or the parent that here's the change of event. Here, the event has been triggered. And here's the function that you have to use. So the event is going to be in parentheses, and that event is going to be the name of the event that we called it in the child. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'll copy that in the child component. So this is the event. This is the name of the event. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste that here. And so when this event is triggered, I wanted to then add that item, that child item, to our parent list. Well, that's our function that we created here. Is it this one? Sorry, it's this one. It's this add item. So I'm going to go into the parent list and I'm going to add this in here. Okay. Now there is one thing that I think for every event type, I think we have to pass in the $ event. But I'm, I wouldn't, I guess I would have to dig in a little deeper if to understand why exactly. But I think it's just because I think it's because it's an event emitter, and it's just going to emit a new event, I think. But I'm not exactly 100% sure. I wouldn't know what to tell you, give you a definitive answer on that. But anyway, let's go ahead and so this kind of wraps it in full circle, right? Where we've got this event that we called in the child, and here is what to do with that event. And all we're doing is just adding to that array. So let's see if let's see how this. Oh, okay. So far nothing is going to be changed except well, we can still see it. We can still see it because we can still see it. So I can go ahead and I could create an items 3, for example. And you'll see here on the bottom, you'll see here that we have this property. Remember, this is a property from the parent. And you'll see here that this item is an array of 2. Okay, so we have item 1 and item 2. Look, sounds familiar, right? And if I click this add to parent, well, it's going to trigger that click, right? That button click event. And it's going to notify the parent that there has been a change. That parent knows what to do with that change. All it's going to do is going to add to the items list. And so let's see that. Okay, nice. So as you know, as I was expecting, yeah, we have an array of 3, and it's now item 1, item 2, and item 3. And we can also just if we wanted to see it, let's just go quickly. I'll do a quick list. Let's see, ng4. No, ng4, yeah, ng4. So ng4 is going to equal to let item of items. And so all we're just going to do is just going to display these items. I think that would work. Let's see, hopefully. Okay, so far we've got item 1, item 2. Actually, okay. All right, so item 1, item 2, and then if I would add item 3 now, you'll see that item 3 comes out. And so that's kind of that's that work flow from the child. And it takes a lot more than just an input decorator or just a decorator for the child to communicate, because it has to also be accompanied by the event. And so again, we could just add another one and we'll start seeing that it just starts to add up. And this is, and mind you, this is the parent component compared to the child component. And so that is a way of communication from one to the other. Let's go back into the presentation. I'll just quickly look at the diagram again. Okay. I guess I missed out on that one. So I did have a diagram as well for how that looked, but in essence, that's kind of, let's go with, I'll go back to Visual Studio Code. And if we can just take a look at, okay, yeah, so here, okay, mind you, this is the parent component. Again, I'm going to recap. This is the parent component. And we've got here our child component, our customer detail. We can go into that component and we can see that there's an output event emitter, and that gives it this name. So this is the name of the child's event emitter. And here is that add item function that belongs to the parent and tells the parent what, or does the function of how to handle that event when it's triggered from the child component. And so that's basically the gist of the add inputs and add outputs event emitters. I don't know if anybody has any questions or would like to see more examples, or would like to, yeah.
I was just going to ask, do we have any questions for Juan? No?
No, I guess not. Okay. Was this helpful, or maybe I was a little bit too rushed?
I think it was very helpful. I would suggest that you could have spoken a little bit slower.
Yeah, no, well, that was absolutely fantastic. And I'm really happy
Yes.
that Julie has the recording, because even though you were speaking fast, like we only have a set amount of time to discuss this kind of stuff. So I
Yeah.
can always go back and look at the recording. And I hope you don't mind if I just send you some messages if I have any questions later.
No, not at all, not at all. Thank you guys for the feedback. I'm definitely trying to get better at it, but yeah, I think today I was a little bit more of a rush. I wasn't even sure if I was going to do the presentation or not, but I was, I said, what, let's do it. Let's go with it. And I wish I would have had a little bit more. I think, yeah, next time I'll definitely slow down and try to be more.
You did. I mean, this really was helpful. And Valerie said that too. This was great information. And so, and that's what Mark said.
Okay.
I think this was very useful. I think it was
Nice.
great. So I
Awesome.
appreciate
Yeah, and you guys can always reach out to me. I do enjoy talking about this, and I'm also still in the learning process as well. So, for me, it's I'm still in the journey. I'm no expert by no means. I think I probably consider myself as a beginner, advanced, or beginner, and so I'm still learning as I go. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. John said, honestly, if it is recorded, I'd rather you speak quickly to get through more stuff. He really appreciates your time. So yes, we do really appreciate it. And I do have one question. What is a pop that was in the background?
Oh yeah, I think that was VScode telling me when somebody was in the same line or somebody was leaving.
Oh,
the line or something
really?
like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm still playing around with LiveShare, but what I'll do is I'll probably remove it, and I'll probably remove the sound.
I thought maybe your son had like a little pop gun that was like a Nerf gun. I thought maybe you were shooting a Nerf gun or something.
Yeah, he was shooting at me while I was presenting. So how was that for presentation? Huh? Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's a LiveShare, but yeah, I'll keep playing with this and I'll turn it off next time.
Okay. Do we have any more questions for him before I turn off the recording? No. Okay. I'm
You are
gonna
now
go.
following Sam Beals.
Oh yeah, you hear that?
You are now following Julie File Customer. You are
Yeah.
now following Mark Thompson File Customer Detail. .component.html. Line 1.
Oh, nice. So I can follow.
File Customer List.
Oh, okay.
.component.html.
That's cool. Now I know. I can follow somebody. Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead
Line
and start
5.
the recording.
File Component.html.
All right. Well, that's enough.